thing that I'm very confident about is that the values that we share with the French people, a belief, a universal belief in freedom of expression, is something that can't be silenced because of the senseless violence of the future.
Well, you heard the president. Yesterday's terror assassinations in France, senseless violence.
So is he coming on strong enough to truly fight against Islamic extremism? Doesn't even matter how he calls it. Violence is violence. Joining us right now, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Of course, you're mayor during the '93 bombing, Mr. Mayor. And, of course, we saw the 9/11. You were there. Does it matter what we call our enemy? We see the damage they do.
It matters a great deal. I mean, this would be as if Ronald Reagan wouldn't have used the word communism, or John Kennedy wouldn't have used the word communism and described them as a senseless enemy. This is not, first of all, that's totally inaccurate.
Right.
This is not a senseless enemy. This is an enemy with sense. They have an ideology. They have a philosophy. You can call it a distortion of a religion, which it is, but it's still an ideology that they follow. It is around the world. They are able to do organized attacks. They're able to do lone wolf attacks. They're able to inspire people to kill. This looked like a very well-trained group. These people had training.
Yep.
So I think it's a terrible mistake. First of all, it's a sign of weakness. And secondly, it doesn't organize the world against them and start to isolate the more moderate Muslims and give them a place to come and to speak out.
Mr. Mayor, we just had an expert on from the UK who said that France clearly dropped the ball. I mean, one of these guys was a convicted terrorist. But for our president yesterday not to mention Islamic extremism, we shouldn't be surprised. He hasn't done it in the past, even though, I mean, we've heard from the eyewitness accounts, the terrorists yesterday said, we have avenged the prophet, talking about Muhammad, talking about the fact that that particular newspaper published those cartoons. So clearly it is Islamic extremism. Why won't our president call it that?
I mean, we've been talking about this for 5 years. I mean, lucky he didn't call it workplace violence, right? I mean...
His spokesperson did call it violence, and then about a half an hour later, yeah, terrorism.
But the reality is, whether the president wants to recognize it or not, they are at war with us. It is worldwide. We are at risk all over the world, and the president should be leading a worldwide effort against them in order to organize our allies, so that we can fight them more effectively, so that we share intelligence in a more focused way. When you understand your enemy, you can pursue them better. When you don't, then you make a lot of the terrible mistakes that you've seen this administration make over the last 4 or 5 years.
Mr. Mayor, you mentioned sense, that this is not senseless, this is sense, and a foundation there, and everyone's trying to wrap their brain around what this religion, what extremism really is. Imam Chowdhury was with Sean Hannity last night, and he said that Islam does not mean peace, it means submission. Watch.
The future must not belong to those who slander the prophet.
Islam does not mean peace, Sean. It means submission. Submission to the commands of God.
Okay, so you want
if you
the
want to live
worldwide
peacefully
submission.
with me, then we can live peacefully together. We can live peacefully together. But when
if we submit to your will and we're your slave, then
as you always say, I admit, that's not peace, is it?
So you want Islamofascism.
You know, when you start to murder Muslims, obviously they will react one day.
So you take that and you combine it with the issue that we have with foreign fighters, with the terror attack that we have right now, we're looking at in France. Where do we go from here, Mr. Mayor? I mean, you more than anyone understand security and the threat to this nation. Do we increase surveillance now at places like mosques? Where's your position right now?
Well, I think, for example, Mayor de Blasio taking the police out of the mosque in New York was one of the more irrational acts that a mayor could perform. And remember, you talked about the 1993 attack on the World Trade Center. Actually, it was the year I was running for mayor. I wasn't the mayor. That was organized in a mosque in New Jersey.
Right, Jersey City.
When I was mayor and when I was United States attorney, because I have been fighting Islamic terrorism for 35 years, I surveil mosques. Now, would any priest or rabbi have the slightest problem with a police officer being at a service? I would think not. I think they'd feel comfortable with a police officer. So if you're uncomfortable with police officers at your service, you must be saying things that are dangerous. You should want to welcome people to a religious service. So I think we should be surveilling mosques. I don't think we should be embarrassed about it. I think we should cut out the political correctness. Yeah. This is Islamic extremist terrorism. It is not the entire Muslim religion. And the faster we do that, the more we're going to organize the moderate Muslims to have the courage to speak out against them.
Hope you're right.
We used to know what's going on in Iraq. We don't do that anymore. We used to know what's going on in mosques. We don't do that anymore. We don't have any idea. We're letting all our prisoners go out of Gitmo. We're not talking to anybody, interrogating anybody anymore. Not a good combination. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, and you're absolutely right.